And then there's the other thing that has colored my day. And it's not so bad as poisoning lions or anything like that. This is more a question I stumbled across on one of those things like Goliath or one of those rancor things where they start talking about like super villains that are totally understandable or whose motives are... It's one of those where somebody's always trying to defend Thanos. Let me jump right out here and say Thanos is a fucking idiot. Short-sighted, narrow focus, just like a typical fucking human. Which he's not even supposed to be. I mean, the guy's powerful enough, smart enough, to be able to outthink, outsmart, outwit all the greatest minds so far. Doctor Strange, Tony Stark, any name you can come up. He's already found a way to get around him. So far. But when he finally gets this reality warping golden gauntlet with a bunch of fucking cosmic stones in it, what does he do? Does he do anything different? Does he take a moment to stop and think before I snap my fingers? Is it possible that I might be able to do something else? That rather than murder half of the population of the fucking universe, that perhaps instead, why not make all the species breed slower? Why not make all resources twice as plentiful? Or last twice as long? You could even have snapped your fingers and said that living beings do not require nutrients or resources to exist. And it would have been that way. He had a golden fucking gauntlet that could warp reality to make anything what he wanted to be the way he wanted it. What did he choose? Chose to do the same thing he had been doing ad infinitum the whole time. He decided to finish his psychopathic goal all at once. He wasn't doing it to benefit life. He wasn't doing it to promote health and growth. When he got the gauntlet, he was doing it simply to murder half of the universe. He was justifying it that it was a calling for necessary purposes. How many of his peeps survived again? I can't remember. Yeah, honestly, I watched a couple of the movies a little bit out of sync. Like you watch, I watched Black Panther before I watched Ant-Man and Wasp, of course, because they were out for it. I've tried to, I think actually I have watched them in order. But the problem is that two-parters, I tend to forget storyline. So when the new one comes out, I'm going to end up having to go and refresh myself where we are the night I decide to watch it, which will probably be at home, you know, because I'll be honest, I work in a very busy place, but not a big fan of crowds. Like, there are a lot of people, some of which who subscribe here, I'm sure, that I know you by face. I can sometimes remember your name. But, honestly, I hate crowds. I have very few friends because I'm opinionated, I'm loud, I'm hostile. A quintessential Leo once you get to know me. I'm a demanding control freak who is frankly making 1/4 of the amount of money that they used to make. And yes, it does piss me off. But it doesn't rule my fucking thoughts. That's when I hear somebody shout shit like they get into some fucking screaming match inside and they start bitching about our minimum wage jobs. I'm okay with my minimum wage job. I've done higher paying jobs. A lot of them. I've done everything from collections agencies and telemarketing to carnival work and the fair to delivery driver to running my own construction crew. Done a bunch of different jobs. But you know that not important. Off topic. I have a tendency to do that. I really try to avoid doing that. But I have short-term memory issues. That's why when you come into the store, I may or may not remember you. Or at least not remember your name. Anyway, Thanos could have done anything once he got that gauntlet. But he did not. And I made, my simple comment there and went on about, and I went a little bit deeper into it and found a couple people who were having a discussion about one of my wife's favorite Disney characters and also one of my, I don't want to say favorite Disney characters, but she is certainly one of my favorite villains. And just over across the board, because Maleficent was wrong. The evil queen in Snow White, or not Snow White, but Sleeping Beauty. Maleficent was the fairy queen. Not just some, evil bitch with horns and, a bad temper and a little bit of control. No, she was the fairy queen. No matter what else, no matter how wicked her fucking rule, you could not invite two lesser ambassadors, or no, I'm sorry, three, according to the story, the three other fairies that showed up. You can't invite those three and snub the queen. You can't do that. That's the declaration of fucking war. And those three fairies that showed up presented their love and their gifts. Oh man, they're on the wrong side of this conflict. Maleficent was perfectly fucking justified in taking out that whole fucking kingdom in a bloody fucking war if she chose. Precedent is there. In human history, we've done that shit. Instead, she put a curse on the daughter. Not even really that bad a one. Overall, she basically has to sleep until her Prince Charming arrives. True love, whatever. But there's a lot of villains that you can kind of grasp, and that's the intent. That's the best kind of villain. Like, when you've got a villain that's entirely powered by greed, that's pretty two-dimensional. How far are you going to take that? Greed could be the singular driving force in everything, so much so that they're in a level of avarice that is beyond what Jobs and Bezos and Branson and all those guys, beyond their wealth. You want to have more and more and more. And you start to see that kind of greed in Saudi princes. People with a lot of fucking money. Billions and billions of dollars. And that makes for a good villain, certainly. But they have to be secret and clandestine. Lex Luthor. And that's why Luthor's still a good villain. Because, let's be honest, he's a good, bad white guy. We can all be okay with a really bad white guy. This one doesn't have to have an English voice or anything. He can totally look like the asshole corporate guy out the trot on the lesser man to advance himself. But I still don't think Luthor's a great villain just because of that. His greed is not what motivates him. His greed is just, he's a genius. And he uses his things to generate power and money for himself. It's not so much that he's greedy. I mean, he is. But that's not the driving force. The driving force for Luthor is power. More than money, power. And that's a different kind of greed. That's a kind of greed that makes a good villain. Not a villain that's just wanting to be super rich, you know, that thinks money is the way to power. That's a shallow villain. And we see that a lot in DC and Marvel, really. To be honest, we do. There's some shows like Breaking Bad where... and that's one of the ones somebody mentioned, like, you know, villains that you can kind of understand what they were doing. I mean, but let's be honest, you can't at any point make Walter White any kind of, I understand what he was doing sort of villain. You can't. You really can't. You might want to, because he was a good character, played by an excellent fucking actor. But you shouldn't like Walter White. You should want Walter White to be dead at the end of every fucking episode. Because cancer or not, wanting to protect and provide for his family or not, that motherfucker was making meth. He's not an anti-hero. He's a villain. A good villain. And that's why I like Jack Gleason, the kid that played Joffrey on Game of Thrones. Because that's a villain that's pretty much unredeemable. He was raised to be a nasty little shit. Right from the start, right from the get-go. Joffrey was always going to be a villain. A bad, tyrannical king. So, in that regard, I've never seen Joffrey as a good villain. He's so two-dimensional, but it's because Cersei is the real villain there. All of everyone else around her, even Jaime Lannister, is just a puppet in Cersei's machinations. She's the real villain. They've finally gotten around after a couple seasons to make certain that everybody understands that. I mean, I'm current, so don't worry. I know how fucked up that bitch is. Just you try not to give anything away, but if you're a Game of Thrones fan and you're not up to date and current, you're really not a fan. You're kind of, I don't know, somebody that maybe watches the show occasionally. But yeah, there's, and you can almost understand Cersei's motivations. For her, it really is dynastic. It is trying to protect what she saw as her actual love and family, which was Jaime Lannister. Now, the problem is that's all twisted up and fucked up and perverted, but he was nice enough, dear creator, to make sure that we all understood, if you've read the book or pay any attention to the show, all the great houses fuck their fucking cousins and brothers and sisters. And it's just been going on for thousands of years, to the point where, frankly, I don't know why they've been fucking hiding it. The fucking Targaryens were so inbred that even their dragons were so inbred that they were dying out as a fucking people. I'm surprised Daenerys doesn't have a fucking cleft palate or something. Fuck, in the book she's like 13. So, you know. Man, that guy's got some issues. But yeah, reading through some of the comments on that was entertaining. because there are a lot of people that skip past the whole point of what Maleficent was doing. You know, she was justified because of this, but nobody actually stops to think about how that would have worked out in medieval times for humans. That would have been bloody fucking war. That would have been a snub of the utmost fucking both fingers. That would have been on the level of Vlad Tepes nailing the Turks' helmet or their hats to their heads because they refused to take them off. See, we've got enough villains that you can understand their motivations in our own history. But fictional ones are more fun because we add as much depth to them as we can to make the fictional characters resemble ourselves as much as they can. Because we want to be entertained, but we want to be entertained by things we're familiar with, that we understand. Anyway, more dishes. Why won't it stop? Stop the video!